He stole 33 years from me. It's hard to admit. For me, it feels a bit like at the age of 51, I've woken up from 33 years of hypnosis. What now? What have I achieved in my life? Where have those 33 years gone? And what am I going to do now? I was experiencing a sudden existential crisis. When I think about it now, I feel like such a fool to have been so gullible, to have taken it so seriously, when in fact it's so obvious that it's completely idiotic and ridiculous. As a Raelian, you have a mission to accomplish, so it was unthinkable to have a child. Rael demanded utter loyalty. Now that I'm a father, I think becoming a parent is the most beautiful thing ever. My daughter was born 2 months ago. I'm very proud and she's adorable, and I'm trying to make up for lost time. I'm now 57 years old.
I was watching this documentary the other day, and it actually reminded me of the Manosphere, and I'll explain why. But basically, the name of it was like Rael and something something. It's about some false prophet who got really popular, mainly in Quebec. But basically, he was saying that we were created by aliens, and that one day the aliens revealed themselves to him, and he's Jesus' brother, and he's Gandhi's brother, and he's one of the prophets, and that kind of stuff. And it was about how we got to build this huge welcome center or this huge temple, because once the temple is built, then the alien who created us will have somewhere to come to. So once we finish building the temple, then the aliens will come back. And we're really big into human cloning because the aliens revealed that to me. And so you had a lot of people devote a lot of years into this belief system that he was pushing them into. This whole belief that, hey, we were created by aliens, so we got to create this center for the aliens to come back to. And people were giving up 20, 30, 40% of their income going into an account to build this center that was never built, obviously. You had people pushing this human cloning story because their whole thing was allegedly they had cloned a human because that was part of their religious beliefs and faith and all this kind of stuff. And they were going around talking about it and went before Congress and did interviews. But it turns out to this day, they've never produced any piece of evidence that they've ever actually cloned a human being because, quite frankly, they haven't. But that's not the craziest part. That's not the part that jumped out to me. The part that jumped out to me was at the end. The guy who said, hey, I'm Gandhi's brother and I'm Jesus' brother and the aliens revealed themselves to me. The guy who organized all these people and had these people devote all these years of their life to him. Once the heat got hot and he had to leave Quebec, now he's in Japan. Still with the gift of gab, so he got a couple of women around him and he's just living his best life. Like he didn't even say all that other stuff. Like when you watch it and he comes on at the end, it's clear, like all that human cloning stuff, he don't care nothing about that. All that building the center to the quote unquote alien forefathers, he don't care about none of that. He never really believed any of that. He was never really on to any of that. He just made the whole thing up. And so there was a guy on there and he was embarrassed. Because this whole thing was, man, I spent 33 years in this cult. And as I look back at it now as an adult, it's so embarrassingly obvious how stupid the whole thing was. How did I involve myself in this? And that's what got me thinking of the Manosphere. Because if you look at the space and the red pill stuff, there's been so much in life and online that directly contradicts all this red pill stuff. You see so many red pill content creators exposed. It's so clear that so many are grifting. It's so clear that so many of the talking points that don't add up. It's so clear that the deeper you go into the red pill stuff, your life doesn't become better. You go deeper into a hole. All of that is obvious and clear. But nobody wants to be like the dude in that documentary. Because once you accept the fact that this is silly, once you accept the fact that this ain't what I thought it was, once you accept the fact that this ain't it, then you have to come face to face with the amount of time that you wasted. And that's what jumped out to me. This man had to admit, hey, I wasted 33 years of my life. And so now he's 57 years old and he just became a father. Why? Because he devoted all his time to this make-believe thing. And so he didn't start a family. He didn't build up for himself. He gave up everything to follow behind this. And ultimately, it was the wrong choice. And so now you got to try in your 50s to live the life that you should have lived when you were in your 20s and 30s. He had to come face to face with the fact that he wasted his prime years on a false belief. And in my opinion, that's why so many men will not let the red pill go. No matter how much no matter how many of the leaders and the top voices are exposed, no matter how many of the people who you listen to and follow, you can see that they've been doing this for years and years, and they've gotten no progress in life. No matter how many people are exposed as grifting, no matter how many guys are exposed as living the direct life that they talk about, not living with the talking points. No matter how many guys' lives you can see not progressing by taking all of this red pill stuff on. Like, you see the outcomes. So then the question becomes, why can't guys let the red pill go? It's because they don't want to do what the guy in the documentary did. They don't want to come face to face with how much time they actually wasted. Guys don't want to admit, hey, my prime years, 25 to 35, or whatever you want to call it, I was wasting that on panels. I was wasting that reacting to women's videos. I was wasting that complaining about what's wrong with the Western woman. Time that I could have spent leveling up. Time that I could have spent just exploring all of my options. The time I could have went investing in myself. I spent all that time online, wasting time, following people who aren't going anywhere. Guys do not want to face the fact of how much time they've wasted. And so they cannot leave the red pill, even though they know it's some bull crap. The moment you walk away from it, now you got to face how much time you wasted. Think about that guy. Wasted his prime years in the cult. Now he's like a new father at the age of 57. Because, hey, man, I wasted 33 years. You look at the documentary, there's other people who they just refuse to accept how much time they wasted. So they're still believing to this day. The guy who sold them all this stuff is out living life. He done forgot all that stuff he done told them, but they're still holding on to everything that he said. Why? Because the moment you let go of the lie, now you're confronted with how much time you wasted. Guys don't want to face how much time they wasted. It's that simple. Who wants to look up and admit, hey, man, I spent 5 years of my 30s complaining about women instead of leveling up and creating the situation I wanted. I wasted 5 of my prime years. Who wants to admit that? The amount of money I spent in super chats and cash apps and channel memberships. And courses and books. The number of Friday and Saturday nights I spent online. I wasted years. I wasted maybe thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars when you add it all together. Who wants to admit that? And the longer you refuse to accept it, the harder it becomes to accept it. It's one thing to admit you wasted 1 year. It's a whole something else to admit you wasted 3 or 5 or 8 years, 10 years. Who wants to admit, hey man, I wasted 5 years in the Manosphere? Nobody wants to do that. I wasted 5 years on these silly talking points. I wasted 5 years complaining about these women. Nobody wants to admit to that. Nobody. It's that simple. The moment you had your red pill rage for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, I'll even give you up to 18 months. At that 18th month, at the latest, that's when you should have snapped out of it. But once the 18 goes to 24 and then 36, now it's been 3 years. I'm not going to admit that I wasted 3 years. I'm going to just keep doubling down. It's going to be it's going to be some guys, man, like, man, by the time they accepted it, like, you're going to be like the dude on the documentary. I'm 57 years old, just getting into life because I wasted 33 years in a cult. And you're not going to tell me that after 3 years, he didn't have questions. After 5 years, he didn't have questions. But he kept going and going. 33 years. And like I said, it's people that still believe. But yeah, man, it's sad. The longer people live a lie, the more likely they are to just accept the lie and keep living in it than they are to admit that it was a lie and moved on. Because it's a threefold problem. Number one, you're embarrassed. And the guy even said it. He was embarrassed by how long he spent and how obvious it was and how did he buy into it. So you're embarrassed. But then number two, you recognize, man, I wasted a lot of time. Then number three, I'm not where I need to be. So now I need to try and catch up and make up and set up all in once. It's just too much of a work for a lot of guys. They'd rather just continue to live the lie.